Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast, where we discuss health education and how to best teach health ed in the K 12 setting.
Hello, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Reichel. Today's episode is going to focus on what you can expect by going to current conferences. And to help me out, I've asked the wonderful, energetic Judy LoBianco to join me. Good morning, Judy. How are you today?
Hello, Lori. I am great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here. And I really look forward to this conversation because I didn't understand the energy of going to conferences and what to expect until I actually went to one.
It's certainly a way of life for many of us. And, it's sometimes it gets addictive, right? And
Yeah,
it's funny how once you're in it, you can't believe that people have never gone before, right?
yeah,
So it's cool
yeah.
stuff. I'm really excited to talk about it today.
Well, do you mind giving us a little bit of your background? Tell us who you are.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Judy LoBianco, and currently I'm the president and CEO of HPE Solutions Consulting, but have had a long and wonderful career as a high school health and physical educator in South Orange Maplewood Schools at Columbia High School. I was a supervisor of health and physical education and nursing for the district for most of my career. And you might have seen me popping around with my volunteer antics as the president of New Jersey AFERD and the president of Shape America just over in 2018-19. So I've been really thrilled to be a leader in our profession and a content expert, a supervisor, curriculum developer, an all-around enthusiast around health and PE.
Thank you for all the service you've done for the field.
Oh, you're very welcome.
How did you start going to conferences?
Well, before I got on with you, I did the math, and I've been going to conferences for exactly 35 years. Because
Okay.
it started in college, right? And I went to a fantastic university who, from the gate, Montclair State, was always about being the very best leader you can be in your field, especially in teaching. So when I was 19 years old, I got the chance to go to my first conference because there was an expectation there that you were going to seek out growth from the very beginning. So I started going when I was 19, which was 35 years ago this year. And it is a habit that I formed that is a way of life for me at this point.
So, even 35 years ago, as a student, you must have felt some kind of comfort level, like a higher one, to then return to conferences. Is that correct?
Sure. Because of the benefits that it gives you. The conference will only give you as much as you are open to get, right? And as a supervisor, I can tell you that I've sent people to conferences who have gotten nothing out of them, and sent people to conferences who want to go each and every year. And it's a mindset, and the mindset is a very important one. It's a mindset of growth. And when you get out of college, I always thought this, when you get out of college, your learning doesn't end. And in order for you to be on the cutting edge of our profession, particularly in health education, where we are saving the lives of children and, delivering matter of life and death content, I want teachers who are going to be students of their profession for life, right? And conferences help us do that.
Yeah. And I know we talked before we started recording about how current school health educators are skill based, in which a lot of us were not trained in that way. So,
Right.
going to a conference, if you look at what's being provided before you go, you'll see that usually there'll be a lot of sessions for how to strengthen your curriculum to be more skill based.
Right. Yeah, absolutely right. And when you go to a conference and you know that you have a weakness in a particular area, because that's the most humbling thing a teacher can do. It's I would love to go to every activity session in PE at a conference. And I do that, but I like to balance my conferences in the things that I am most humble about around needing to know, right?
Yeah.
So we've got new national standards out there, and I want to learn as much as I can about those standards and become a student of those standards. And that's where I am in my career, but I also present and do those kinds of things. I think it's really important that when you're a participant and an attendee, you're humble about what you want to learn and bring back to
Mm-hmm.
the classroom in order for you to get better, because ultimately that's going to serve your children.
Yeah. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to share how I started going to conferences.
Please.
I know when I was in programs and even when I started teaching, I couldn't necessarily afford to go to a conference. So I didn't
Right.
go to them. I know other people could. I paid for my own education. I started financially, having an apartment and stuff. Yet when I became a health coordinator, I was told by my administrator, you know what, you can go to conferences. We do have that money to go. And I do, any of you listening in, when you're hired in a school district, inquire if you're allowed or if you're allotted a certain amount of money per year to go to a conference, because that's one way to go. I didn't know that existed until I became a health coordinator. And
Right.
so my administrator's like, why don't you go to the state conference? So I went to one in New York State, and I felt the energy. I met Dom Splendorio, Sal Chiarello, if I'm saying his name correctly. I'm sorry, Sal, if I didn't. And I love the energy. And then I went to some sessions where I was like, oh, this seems a little outdated. This is what I'm doing, because I was skill based earlier in my career. And so the next year I put in to present, and I think I had 150. Oh no, my first year presenting, I had 5 people in my presentation. I was given one of the challenging slots, a Friday morning first like 8 o'clock session,
Yeah.
and the New York State Teacher of the Year was there, as well as Sal and Dom, and that's how I got even more involved. So even if you go to a conference, there's only a few people in a session, they may be the people that are going to really help you go to future conferences, but also strengthen your skills and help you present at conferences. Because I think the third time I've gone to a New York State conference, and the second time I presented, I had over 150 people in my session. So, and two, becoming a health coordinator, they then told me about the funding. So look
Right.
into that. And you can always find a roommate too if you go on the Facebook and you put in like New York State AFERD and I'm looking for a roommate, you might be able to save some money in that way.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point about the funding. I'm not sure that newer teachers would be aware that federal funding law offers something called Title II in every school district in America, right? This is the new ESSA Education Act that says in Title II, that money is allocated for teacher professional development, not just math or science teachers, all teachers. So if you're thinking that your district doesn't have funding, just let your supervisor or principal know, what about Title II funding? Wouldn't that be able to help me to get to the conference?
I love that you say that. I love that, because the other thing is school districts might say, well, we have funding for SEL. Well, here's the secret. That shouldn't be a secret. Health education, that's really what we are, SEL. We just didn't market ourselves in that way. And I know
Yeah.
Mary Connolly on the Eastern Coast, she would be like, yeah, we're SEL. We train
Yep.
people in that way. So it's so, I love that. Talk to your administrators about Title II, right? That's what you said? Title
Title
II.
II.
Now, what do you consider are the top things educators will get for going to a conference?
Right. Well, number one is to enhance your practice. I've been, been told I say this all the time, but it never gets old, that if you're teaching and you teach the same way you do every year, and it's the same content and the same instructional strategies for 20 years, you don't have 20 years experience. You have 1 year experience repeated 19 times. And the danger there is that our children are still 10 years old and 15 years old, and they need you to be on the cutting edge. So the number one thing is to get out there and see what the current trend in health and physical education are. The changes I have seen in the 35 years I've been in the profession have been immense and necessary. And we have evolved as a profession, and teachers need to evolve with those practices, right? And those trends. So the number one thing is to get in there and find out what's happening that best serves your kids in the classroom. That's number one. Number two, I would say the ability to be re-energized in your practice, right? There is something to be said that is palpable. about being around hundreds of people who have the same level of passion for what we do and for the children we teach, right? You might go into a school district where you're the most passionate and enthusiastic person around you, and all of your colleagues may be flat and, tired. You go to a conference and all of a sudden you realize there are people like me out here, and I can bring that enthusiasm back to my school and reinvigorate the department and reinvigorate our colleagues and bring to them the current practices that can help their teaching, right? Because we're going to do this, we've got to take the profession back from the ground up with the champions who are out there learning as much as they can. So that would be the second thing. And then I would say
And
the
before you
network.
continue, if
Yeah.
I can add on to that, I know
Go.
so many health educators, they're one of maybe one person for health ed. Maybe
Yes.
there's two and they don't see that person regularly. So going to a conference, you get to meet more of your own, like, hey, you have no one to speak with. So why don't we connect, share our cell phones? Why don't we, cell phone numbers, and we can keep in contact to support one another or join a Facebook group, because you don't have to be in a silo.
Right. And that was my number three, the networking, the
Okay.
connections that you make that are forever, right? The people that I've met over 35 years who are friends all over the country. And when I started teaching, there was no social media. So that became a little harder. But now it's like you see these people once a year. It's like a big family reunion at the state level, at the national level. And in between, you get to share practice, right? And it's in real time, right? If my third period, 10th grade health class bombs, I can get on social media and say, how would you have done this differently? Do you have a resource for me? Because I'm teaching this again in 3 periods. So somebody help me. And
Yeah.
boom, it's right there. So I think that conferences serve as those wonderful things to be able to help us, push the needle forward on the profession. So it's cool stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything in about what to expect when you go to a conference?
Sure, sure. What's interesting, there's some really good tips that teachers give right before the national conference at Shape America. Things that I never would have thought of before that I think are brilliant, like bring a backpack, have water where you go, make sure you put snacks in the backpack. Because what happens is you leave your hotel, you get to the conference venue, and then you're on the run all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes not even having time for lunch. Not because you're in leadership meetings or anything like that. Yeah, that's part of it that I was involved in, but because you want to have these conversations with people and you want to stick around for the speaker right after the session and you want to visit the exhibit hall, it's really important that people pace themselves and plan out what they're going to do at the conference prior to being there, because it's an overwhelming experience if you've never done it before, right? So you can't see and do everything, and it's really important to map out how you're going to spend your time, and negotiate that time, however many days the conference is. And yes, you'll be upset. You want to see two things that are happening at the same time, but it's okay. Reach out to the speaker of the session that you didn't get to go to. They'll happily share their information. Oftentimes there's proposals that go in, and the PowerPoints and the resources are something that the speaker leaves with the convention, right? So even if you don't get to see it, you have access to those materials. It's 2024, which means that we are connected in that way. So I would say don't feel bad if there's two things happening at once. Don't underestimate the power of the convos in the hallway, right? At the dinner table, at the happy hour. These are as important exchanges as the ones you have in the sessions. And so after 35 years, you could imagine when I was in my 20s, I went to every session time slot that there was from 8 in the morning till 5 at night. And I was really working hard at that. Now, 35 years later, I might see 4 sessions in 3 days, but I'm networking and I'm speaking to professionals and I'm talking to vendors and I'm learning new things, because not everything you learn may be in a session. It might be with the person that you bump into in the line at the lunch table, right? So I think it's really important not to underestimate those experiences.
I love that. Everything that you said, it's so true. That are my experiences for sure, because I've gone to the state and I've lived at different states. So I've gone to different state organization conferences. And then I've gone to like the Eastern Division
Eastern
of
District, yeah.
Yeah, and then I've gone to national and
Yeah.
also an international, which is pretty neat.
Nice. Very
I
cool.
I will say, as a person who's presented, first of all, realize we don't get paid to present.
Correct.
Usually, I mean, sometimes when you volunteer, so if you're like a section president or something for an organization, you might get some a free registration, you might get like half of a room or something, but a lot of
Yeah.
people that present aren't part of the organization itself. They're a member, but not on a board, or I'm forgetting what that's called, the board or the executive committee.
Executive board. Yep.
Yep. So people are doing this out of the goodness of their hearts slash profession, to share ideas that have worked for them with their colleagues. So please note that. So it's not like it's their job that they're there, it's their passion. And so if you can't go to a session, you can reach out to a presenter. Yet something that I found that sometimes I have to take a breath for is people will come in and go, "Oh, I can't stay for your presentation. Can I just have the handout?" And at times it's like, I need you to be here to process.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, too, I note that some people do teach both health education and physical education. And
Right.
sometimes, and this has happened in my career, people have grabbed things to do them because they need to do them, but they don't really teach to them, if I can say it like that.
Right. Right.
So if you have somebody that you've approached and say, well, you can look at what's online through the conference's website, go for it.
Yeah.
Yet there's certain things for you to like experience within the session. Please don't think you're just going to get a whole bunch of stuff that people have worked hours and hours and hours on. And if you do have access to their things, please give them credit. Please, please, please.
100,000,000%.
Yeah.
100,000,000%.
So, what has been your top experience of going to a conference?
My top experience, I mean, I love the Shape America convention, don't get me wrong. It's electric, and anybody who is in our profession should at least go once. It's an incredible experience. But the top experience I had was at a conference in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a gathering of it's like a national PE institute way back in the day. And about 200 to 300 people go to that. And it's a different type of conference, Lori, when you've got 200 to 300 people versus 4,000 people at the national. It's not better or worse, it's just different, right? And I went as a supervisor and I took one of my teachers with me. There's nothing like sitting in a session, administrator and teacher, and learning together. It's amazing. And in this one particular session, we're sitting next to each other, and the presenter introduces this like mind-blowing app for the iPhone, like for your telephone. And all at once, we got so excited together that we looked at each other and we knew it was a game-changing thing. We just didn't know how. And at the end of the session, we went back to the hotel, went to the pool, and talked all about how we were going to make this app a big thing in our department. I've never been more excited about anything than watching my teacher's eyes pop out like, "Oh my God, we discovered fire!" That it brought me back to being a young teacher when you don't realize how much you don't know until you get to a conference, right?
Right.
And that was one of my top moments to share with one of my colleagues, how we can go home and make the profession better because of this thing I didn't know about. There's nothing like learning a new thing.
Yeah.
No matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been in the profession, it's just that moment like, okay, I'm humble in what I don't know. Doesn't matter how long you've been in the profession, how much you lead. There's always something new to learn, and it's important that we stay open to that mindset. But that was my top moment. Me as the supervisor with this teacher, and us just looking at each other like, "Oh my God."
You must have been such a great supervisor. I mean, to have that, you have a positive energy right now, but I could imagine that throughout your career, and that teachers that worked with you were just like, who is this person? They love what we're doing here.
Yeah, we did have fun, and I was the yes person. Yes, wherever you want to go, I'll find the money. Right? Let's go. I'll get the money to send you wherever you want to go, and we did get the money. We had grants and stuff, and it made it very cool. but I was somebody who felt it was very important to support teachers. And if I was still supervising, I've been out of it for a while now, I would really pay close attention to a post-COVID way to support my teachers. Support for teachers right now in this post-COVID world. It looks different. It feels different. We have to ask questions. We've got to check in on teachers and make sure they're taking care of themselves, because if they don't, they can't take care of kids, right?
Absolutely.
And find ways to help teachers who are running households and have 3 kids and are taking their kids to soccer if they can't get to a conference and because they're coaching, and let's find a way to pull them into the fold around professional development in a way that meets their needs, right? If it's not a workshop or a conference, what will it be, and how can we help them get there?
Well, before I ask you a last question, I want to share quickly my favorite moment from a conference.
Yeah.
And that was when I was New York State Teacher of the Year. It was 2007. Yet at the same time, it was really about the person's theme. It was something about the Wizard of Oz with Sarah Daggett in New York State. I was the secretary for the organization. I was asked to fill in for someone, then I ran, and I was quiet at the meetings, very, very quiet. And some of my colleagues approached me and said, "You have to be Dorothy at the conference." And I was like, "No, that's Sarah. This is her theme. She's Dorothy. I want to be the Wicked Witch." So when we had the first presenter, I don't know if you heard about this. When we had the first presenter, we had gotten permission, like he was the headliner for the first day. We got permission that we could interrupt Sarah. So I was dressed as a witch, green face, long nose, black hair. You couldn't recognize me. And as Sarah, who was very difficult to throw off because she was always ready, to handle anything because of her experience, she was on stage saying, "Welcome," and blah, blah, blah. And as she's about to introduce the speaker, I come from the back of the audience shouting out, "Who saved my sister?" And I went through the audience, climbed up onto the stage, and Sarah's like, and I did this thing like, "You told her not to drink and fly, blah, 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 blah." And then some of my colleagues came out dressed as the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion, and they saved Sarah. And I was looking for her ruby sneakers that she got mysteriously in the summer. So it was just a way to get excited about being present, and nobody knew who I was, but it was just to add to the conference because, like you said, like this was before COVID, but before COVID and especially now after COVID, we need that energy. We need that.
That is a fantastic story.
Yeah, how do we make things funner?
And Lori, by the way, the New York State AVID convention, I had never been in my whole life until last fall. What an experience. For your listeners, I have to tell you, one of the top state conferences. Really very, very good. Energetic, lots of people, lots of excitement, very professionally done. I really enjoyed myself. I really did. And top quality sessions as well. So New York, put it on your list, everybody.
Thanks for saying that. We have Andy Milne as one of our head people to do a speech, headliner this year.
He is awesome. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so as we're heading towards the end of our recording today, would you mind sharing anything else you'd like to tell anybody listening in about being a member of an organization or going to a conference?
Sure. So I have 2 hats on when I think about this, as the past president of Shape America and as a supervisor of teachers. I think there's nothing better you can do for your kids than to continue to grow and learn as a teacher. Yes, you can do that on your own in isolation, but it certainly is better when you are relying on resources and instructional strategies that are out there that we know that work, and that have been tested with kids and are kid approved and that are working, right? And I know this because in my past 5 years as a consultant, I've been walking into health classrooms, and I don't like what I see. Quite honestly, and the real world isn't just the people who go to conferences. When I walk into a classroom and I ask a child, "What are you learning and why are you learning it?" and they can't answer me, that's a dire situation, right?
Yeah.
And so I am calling upon the efforts of every professional in the sound of my voice to make sure that you maintain a growth mindset or find your growth mindset, because teaching and learning is not about you, it's about those kids. And you being
Absolutely.
at the top of your game is extremely important. And I'll end the way that I started with talking about the very unique position we are in as health educators, right? This is life and death work, and it has to be taken seriously. And yes, I got into health education because I loved how the body worked and I loved the way the body heals itself and all of these things. But at the end of the day, we have got to help kids love themselves enough to take care of their health. And that is a tall order. That is something that we as certified professionals are in charge of delivering. No other subject area does that. And so where do conferences and webinars and conferences fit in? It fits in by making you well equipped and armed with the knowledge and the skill you have to help them lead healthier, more active lives, right? I'm putting you in charge of that as your supervisor, right? So please get out there, know as much as you can, learn as much as you can, be humble in what you don't know, and understand that there's no such thing as the perfect teacher. No such thing as the perfect teacher. I'm sorry if I'm insulting anybody, but it's just the truth, right? I'm from New Jersey. New Yorkers and New Jerseyans, we tell it like it is, right, Lori?
Yes, we do.
It's really important that each time you enter the classroom, you try to up your game one better than you did before. And if you don't know something, that's okay. Go find out.
Yeah.
Go find out. And remember why you're there. Remember why you're there and why a conference is so important, because it ultimately serves the children in your care.
I resonate with everything you just said, Judy. 100%. Thank you.
Awesome.
How can people get in touch with you?
How can people get in touch with me? So I have this cool company I've been, running for 5 years. It's been going pretty well. And then the website is www.hpesolutionsllc.com. And my email address is judy@hpesolutionsllc.com. I've been doing workshops in New Jersey for quite some time. And in the fall, I'll be doing sessions on the new National Health and Physical Education Standards and making sure that people know what they are, know who Shape America is, understand why these new standards are really something to be excited about, because they finally really help us see the whole child, whether they're on the gym floor or in the health classroom, and really pushing that skill-based health agenda so that we can get away from some of that fear-based tactic in health and really push the agenda on skill-based health. So I'm a consultant. I'm in New Jersey right now, and we'll be here for another school year. And, I'm available if anybody needs a thing. This is my post life from the schools. I retired in 2019, and now I'm doing this. And I really enjoy going back into the classroom, writing curriculum, talking to teachers, and really seeing the lens on the ground, right? I'm seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly in this job. And it's really important that we acknowledge that although we're excited about the people we see at conferences, these are the best of the best. But if you walk into a typical school on a typical day in a typical classroom, you might see less motivated teachers, and we need to talk to them too. So I'm really doing the work of the ground here, and I'm really excited about doing that.
Well, thank you again for everything that you've done and are doing for our field. And I thank you for your time today. I will make sure that your link for how to get in touch with you, your website, is going to be on today's description, as well as reference to your email address.
Well, that'll be great.
Would you like to say goodbye to our audience for the day?
I would like to say, how about a shout out for Lori? I have been listening to these podcasts, and the impact you're making, it's a niche that nobody has. I don't know if you realize this, not just the puberty podcast, but the conversations that we're having as health educators. When we are the forgotten side of the world, you are amplifying that message in a way that I'm just so excited about. So shout out to you, Lori. That's how I want to end it. And just thanks for everything you continue to do to uplift the voice of health educators everywhere.
Thank you. Seriously, that touched my heart. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do this because I do believe in what we do. I truly do. So those of you that are listening in, I do believe in what we do. Thank you so much for listening to the conversation with Judy today. And remember to follow this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you haven't yet, check out the schoolhealtheducators.org website. I worked with a graduate student to create that last year. So we're trying to build more and more resources for you to refer to on that site. And that's not a business, that's just a resource site at this point. And also, please remember that you make a difference. You matter. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and stay well, folks.